Have you ever caught him looking at you when he thought you weren't noticing? That glance that lingers a little too long, the slight shift in his voice when he speaks your name. The way his body seems to orient itself toward you even without intention. These are not coincidences. These are the whispers of a heart awakening before the mind catches up. Carl Jung taught us that the unconscious acts first, revealing truths that the conscious mind is too slow or too afraid to admit. And love, true love, often blooms first in the unconscious. A man who seems distant, who sometimes confuses you with mixed signals, might actually be much more in love with you than he himself realizes. His rational mind hesitates, questions, doubts, but his soul has already chosen. You can see it in how his eyes search for you in a crowded room, how his voice softens only for you, how he becomes more present, more real, in your company. This kind of love does not announce itself with fireworks or grand declarations. It slips quietly into his being, changing him from within in ways neither of you fully recognize at first. He may try to act casual. He may retreat into silences that confuse you. He may show up unexpectedly, pulled by a force he can't explain. Love like this doesn't ask permission. It doesn't follow logic. It simply is. Jung said that what is not made conscious manifests in our lives as destiny. And that destiny often begins with small, almost invisible signs that a man's heart has already started to move toward you even while his mind lags behind. The key is not to expect dramatic confessions. The key is to see how his world shifts in your presence, how the patterns of his life subtly rearrange themselves, how he shows up not because he planned to, but because some deeper part of him needed to be near you. If you pay attention, you will see it. The unconscious doesn't lie. His soul is already speaking, and once you learn to hear it, you will realize you have been chosen long before he ever finds the words to tell you. There is a moment, quiet and unnoticed, where his soul has already decided before his mind can catch up. You might notice it in the way he listens to you differently, not just hearing your words but absorbing the energy behind them. He remembers things you casually mention, picks up on changes you didn't point out, senses when your smile is not entirely real. These are not acts of strategy or conscious courtship. These are involuntary acts of connection. His unconscious recognizes you before his rationality allows it. Jung believed that emotions emerge from the depths of the unconscious and that true bonds are not constructed, they are revealed. You don't need to chase declarations because his soul is already speaking through his behavior. Watch how he reacts to your presence compared to others. Notice the way his guard lowers without him realizing. Notice how he becomes a little more clumsy, a little more vulnerable, as if standing in your presence disarms him from the inside out. This isn't weakness. This is truth stripping away the persona he wears for the world. His silence around you is not emptiness, it's fullness too heavy for words. His hesitations are not signs of indifference, they are the tremblings of a heart that doesn't know how to name what it feels. You might be tempted to doubt when he pulls away or acts distant. But understand that love, when it is real and deep, often frightens before it comforts. Especially for a man who has not yet learned how to translate the language of his soul into conscious expression. You are not imagining the shift. You are not reading too much into things. The way he orbits around you without explanation, the way his energy seems to lean into yours even when he holds back physically. The way his small actions betray a growing emotional gravity, all of it is real. Love at its purest begins as resonance. It is the silent recognition of two inner worlds calling to each other. And even if he cannot yet speak it aloud, his being already knows. His body already responds. His heart, even as it resists, has already opened a door he won't be able to close. And you, standing there quietly witnessing it all, have already been invited inside a space that words have not yet reached, but where truth lives without disguise. Sometimes the truest love is the one that never announces itself. It does not come with grand declarations or perfectly timed confessions. It is quieter than that, deeper than that. It lives in the subtle spaces between words, in the unguarded moments when he thinks no one is watching. When a man is more in love with you than he knows, you will see it not because he tells you, but because he changes around you. His presence will soften. His breathing will slow when you are near. His entire body will subconsciously adjust to your rhythm. Carl Jung wrote that the soul communicates through symbols, through the seemingly insignificant details that bypass conscious thought. And so does love. It filters through dreams. Through the way he lingers a moment longer after saying goodbye, through the way his voice carries a tremor he doesn't understand when he says your name. You are no longer just another person in his world. You become a point of gravity, a presence that alters his internal orbit without him even noticing. This transformation is not loud. It is not flashy. It is the small but irrevocable turning of the heart towards someone it cannot and does not want to ignore. He might still resist it, clinging to logic, to fear, to the comfort of old emotional patterns. But the unconscious is relentless. It keeps pulling him toward you with a force stronger than rationality. His soul recognizes your soul, and that recognition begins to shape him even before he is ready to admit it. You may notice his attention sharpen toward you, not the shallow kind meant to impress, but a true, deep noticing. The way he picks up on your moods, remembers your fears, celebrates your joys without needing to make a spectacle of it. He begins to listen with his whole body, to care without needing to control, to show up without being asked. And though he may not yet have the words to define what he feels, the signs are already written across his actions, etched into the silences he shares with you, folded into the way he looks for you in every room. His love is not in the things he says. It is in the things he cannot help but do. It is in the way your absence unsettles him, the way your sadness weighs on him, the way your laughter becomes a melody he unconsciously memorizes. When a man is truly touched by love, even before he is ready to name it, his entire being becomes a living testament to that love. And the more you learn to read with your heart instead of your mind, the more clearly you will see that he has already chosen you long before he ever dares to speak it aloud. There is a certain transformation that happens in a man when his soul begins to tether itself to yours, and though it often escapes his conscious understanding, it leaves traces everywhere. Look closely, and you will see it in the smallest things. The way he remembers the little details you thought no one would notice, the way he adjusts his plans subtly to make space for you, the way he shows up not to impress but simply because he feels pulled. He doesn't need to see you every day to feel connected. Your presence lives quietly in his mind, shaping his thoughts, coloring his routines. Carl Jung taught that what the soul loves, it seeks to protect, and when a man is more in love with you than he realizes, he begins to take care of you without fully knowing why. He worries about you getting home safely. He makes sure you are comfortable without asking for recognition. He becomes attuned to your needs in ways that transcend logic. This isn't control, it's devotion that has not yet found its voice. His unconscious acts before his mind can rationalize. He feels responsible for your happiness, your safety, your peace, not because he feels obligated, but because something deep within him feels incomplete if you are not okay. True love, Jung said, transforms not only how we see others, but how we see ourselves. And so this man, even without understanding why, begins to evolve. His priorities shift. His emotional walls lower. He becomes willing to be seen in his vulnerability because your presence makes that feel not only possible but necessary. He may falter. He may retreat in moments of fear. But watch how he returns. Again and again, drawn back by a force he doesn't control. The love he carries is not performative. It is not loud. It is the kind that builds silently in the background until one day it can no longer be hidden. His behavior will betray him long before his words do. When you are around, his energy changes. His focus sharpens. The world fades slightly and you become the center of a gravity he cannot name. It shows in how he laughs more deeply, listens more carefully, lingers more thoughtfully. You are no longer someone he can brush aside or fit neatly into the margins of his life. You have become, without asking, part of the blueprint of his future. And though he may not yet have realized it fully, his soul has already begun to rearrange his world to make room for you. That is the language of true love, the language beyond words. The language that the unconscious speaks fluently, the language you are learning to understand every time you look beyond the surface and into the heart of what truly matters. There comes a moment when you realize that he doesn't need to speak for you to know, that his love is etched into the way he breathes differently when you're near, the way his eyes soften in your presence, the way silence between you feels less like a gap and more like a bridge. His body betrays him before his mind even forms the words. Carl Jung taught that the unconscious expresses itself through symbols and acts far before it can articulate emotion, and so with him, love is not first heard, it is felt. Watch the way he reacts when someone else mentions your name, the slight tightening of his jaw when someone criticizes you, the flicker of light in his eyes when someone praises you. His instincts activate without permission, defending what he cherishes long before he consciously claims it. He may not even recognize these reactions within himself, but you will. Because love, when true, is not rational. It is visceral. It pulses through him in ways that startle him into awareness little by little. You might notice the quiet efforts he makes, the way he listens when you don't think he's listening, the way he saves a memory to share later, the way he checks in on you even when he says he's just passing by. He does not move this way for everyone. He does not stretch his routines, rearrange his priorities, or soften his defenses for just anyone. This is not a performance. It is a shift at the level of his very being. Love touches him like an invisible hand, moving pieces of his life in your direction without needing to ask permission from his logical mind. And when you are not around, he feels it even more sharply. You linger in his thoughts, not as a passing fancy, but as a quiet presence that refuses to leave. His routines feel emptier, his victories less complete, his nights a little longer. You inhabit the spaces he never thought he would offer to someone else, and even if he cannot explain it, even if he tries to resist it, you are already there. Jung believed that the soul moves us toward what we are destined for before our conscious selves even understand what is happening. And so, if you find yourself wondering if he feels what you feel, if you notice these small signs that seem almost too subtle to trust, know this: you are seeing the truth before it is spoken. You are witnessing the blooming of a love that is still finding its voice. And your patience, your presence, your quiet trust in what you see beneath the surface is what allows that love to grow without fear. It is often in his silences where the deepest confessions reside, in the spaces where words cannot reach but energy cannot be hidden. You will see it when he falls quiet beside you, not with the discomfort of absence, but with the fullness of presence. As if being near you fills him so much that speaking would only diminish the moment. Carl Jung reminded us that the unconscious communicates through feeling, through the shifting currents of energy between souls, and you will feel it in him even when he tries to pretend nothing has changed. When a man is more in love with you than he knows, he doesn't always come running with poetry or promises. Sometimes he simply shows up. Sometimes he simply stays. Sometimes, even when he is far away, you feel his energy reaching out to you, like an invisible thread stretched across distance. Notice how he acts when you are absent. Notice how your absence weighs on him heavier than he can explain. Perhaps he reaches out without a clear reason, sending a message, making an excuse to hear your voice. Perhaps he seems restless, distracted, or more vulnerable after days without seeing you. This is not neediness. This is resonance. When two souls begin to entangle beyond the rational mind, separation becomes an ache and presence becomes a grounding force. He might not say, "I miss you," but you will see it in the way he returns, in the way his eyes soften when he sees you again, in the way he lingers longer than necessary, reluctant to let the moment end. His unconscious has already woven you into his internal landscape, into the silent rhythm of his days. And even if he denies it aloud, his actions betray a longing he no longer fully controls. Jung taught that what is repressed in the conscious mind finds expression through behavior, through dreams, through patterns of energy that the soul cannot fake. And so, in his distracted smile, in his sudden bursts of tenderness, in the small pauses where he seems lost in thought when you are near, you find your answer. Love has already made a home in him, even if he hasn't realized it yet. Even if he still tries to fight it with logic or habit. Even if he still wears the armor of independence he once thought necessary. Deep down, the bond is already formed, the roots already growing. And it is through this silent, relentless unfolding that you will know, without doubt, that his heart has chosen you long before his words will. There is a kind of transformation that happens quietly, almost imperceptibly when a man's soul begins to intertwine with yours. It is not a change he plans or announces. It is something that unfolds in the hidden corners of his life, in the shifts he doesn't even fully notice. Suddenly, what once mattered most to him starts to lose its urgency. The rigid independence he once clung to softens. The emotional distance he once maintained effortlessly begins to feel hollow. And it is not because he is trying to impress you, or because he feels pressured. It is because something deeper has been awakened. Jung believed that real change does not come from external pressure but from an inner stirring of the unconscious. And when a man loves beyond his own awareness, that stirring becomes a silent revolution within him. Watch how he begins to open his world to you, sharing parts of himself he once kept hidden. Not the trivial details he shares with everyone, but the real fragments. The fears he rarely voices. The dreams he once thought too fragile to admit. The mistakes he hides even from himself. When he does this, it is not for approval or admiration. It is because in you he senses a mirror that reflects him without judgment. In you, he finds a space where his vulnerability is not a weakness but a bridge. This is how you know the love is real, even before he does. Because he is willing to be seen fully and still stay. He begins to show you his true face, not the carefully constructed persona he offers the world. And in doing so, he draws closer not only to you but to his own authentic self. At the same time, notice how your emotions begin to affect him. When you are joyful, it lights something in him. When you are hurting, even if you don't say a word, a restlessness stirs within him. He feels you across the invisible field that connects you, responding not with perfect solutions but with presence, with silent concern, with an energy that says, "I'm here," even when he doesn't know how to express it in words. True love is not about always knowing the right thing to say, it's about feeling the need to stay connected through every emotion. And perhaps the most profound sign of all is how you remain in his thoughts even when you are not there. In conversations, in decisions, in quiet moments alone, you appear not because he forces it, but because your presence has become interwoven with the fabric of his life. And it is in these unnoticed, uncelebrated moments that the deepest truths are revealed. When a man is more in love with you than he knows, his soul will rearrange his world to make space for you long before his mind understands why. In the end, when you step back and look at the tapestry woven through all his subtle actions, his unspoken concerns, his quiet transformations, you will see it clearly. He has already chosen you, even if he has not yet said the words. True love rarely arrives wrapped in grand declarations or orchestrated gestures. More often, it blooms silently, in the invisible shifts that redefine a man's inner world. Carl Jung taught that the unconscious never lies, that it carries our deepest truths forward even when the conscious mind resists. And so when you witness the quiet ways he shows up for you, the unconscious loyalty he offers without realizing, the growing alignment between his life and your presence, you are not witnessing coincidence. You are witnessing the soul speaking before the mind can catch up. Trust what you feel. Trust the way his energy reaches for you even when he says nothing. Trust the way he includes you in future dreams without announcing it. The way your well-being becomes quietly intertwined with his own peace. He is not perfect and he may still falter, still pull back at times out of fear or confusion. But beneath the hesitations, The missteps, there is something steady, something real, a force moving him toward you that neither of you fully controls. Love that emerges from the soul is not fragile, it is resilient. It does not depend on constant reassurance or elaborate performances. It breathes through presence, through small, consistent gestures, through the simple but profound fact that you are already part of his world even if he is yet to name you as such. Jung said that sometimes the heart arrives at a truth long before the mind understands where it has gone. And that is what you are seeing. A man whose soul has chosen you, whose unconscious already holds you close even as his conscious mind fumbles for clarity. So do not demand grand confessions. Do not rush the unfolding. Stand firm in what you know, in what you feel. Let your own soul recognize the signs written not in loud proclamations but in the silent, powerful gravity of real connection. If you have seen these signs, if you have felt this resonance, you are not wrong. You are not imagining it. His love is already there, quietly reshaping his life around the space where you belong. And eventually, when he catches up to the truth his soul has long known, the words will come. Until then, trust the language of energy, of instinct, of silent devotion. For in the dance between conscious hesitation and unconscious certainty, the heart always finds its way home. In today's world, where words are cheap and gestures are often rehearsed, it becomes even more important to trust what is felt rather than what is merely said. So many connections are built on convenience, appearance, or fleeting emotion. But real love, the kind that roots itself quietly in the soul, still exists, even if it rarely announces itself. If you find yourself standing before a man whose actions whisper what his lips are still afraid to confess, remember this: love that grows silently often holds the deepest strength. Do not rush it. Do not demand certainty from a heart that is still learning how to listen to its own voice. Instead, learn to observe with your soul. Learn to feel beyond words. Because true intimacy is not built in the noise of declarations but in the quiet of presence, in the resilience of daily acts. In the silent loyalty of someone who changes not because you asked them to, but because loving you is rewriting the very rhythms of their being. Let love unfold at its natural pace. Trust the wisdom that Carl Jung pointed to, that what the unconscious knows, the conscious will eventually understand. In a world obsessed with instant gratification, you are called to a deeper patience, a deeper faith. Trust what moves in silence. Trust what lingers in absence. Trust what persists without needing to be chased. And most importantly, trust yourself to recognize love, not by the noise it makes, but by the transformation it brings quietly into the spaces between two souls.